Hey guys, this is Tanner Invest here, and welcome to my 8th video on the digital asset treasury companies like SharpLink Gaming, ticker symbol SBET, and BitMine Emerging Technologies, ticker symbol BMNR, as well as, of course, Ethereum, which is ETH. I've been making videos about these and they've been really successful. So I want to say quickly thank you to the community. I'm now reached 2,000 subscribers and actually reached like the YouTube monetization. So that was something I didn't expect to happen in only like 52 days since starting this channel. So I really appreciate all the support. If you guys are enjoying this one as well, don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment below. I try to respond to as many of them as I can. So today's video, we're going to jump into a couple things. So primarily SharpLink Gaming, because they did report earnings and there's a lot of like negative sentiment out there about this. And so I am going to be kind of a grounding person. I'm going to be a calm, zen human being for you guys today. Just so you know, I still hold my entire position. I don't plan to sell. Just to throw that out there. But today I'm going to get into, that earnings call. Funny enough, I actually did record it. I got up in the morning. I watched it live. I recorded the entire thing. But the audio, I need to figure this out because the audio on their end was so low that whenever I recorded it, it came through as like a lot lower. So you guys wouldn't even really be able to hear. But I'm going to be able to sum up. I actually did post on X an entire breakdown of my thoughts. So if you guys want a little bit of faster access to like what I'm thinking or what I'm purchasing, you can always follow me along there on X. So I really appreciate you guys today, though. We're about to hop in. First, a little bit of a funny moment here where, as you guys are aware, Eric Trump has been talking about buying ETH for a long time now. Actually, I think pre-Trump actually getting elected. And the price has, been pretty dramatic since the time he first tweeted to buy ETH. It actually dropped a ton and he got kind of like memed on a bit, but now it's way up higher than it even was. So he's looking like pretty smart guy. Just like when Trump posted, now's a good time to buy on like April, I think 7th or 8th. And then all of a sudden the stocks went up, 20%, 30%. So maybe we got to listen to people when they tell us to buy stuff. No, I'm kidding. But it's funny because Eric Trump just put out one day ago on August 16th, buy the dips. So buy the dips. Very interesting. I just think it's hilarious because if I were to put something out like this on X, I would probably put like not financial advice or something at the bottom, but he doesn't give a shit, clearly, excuse my language. So one other thing to note, guys, just from a macro perspective, is that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent did actually X post as well, saying Bitcoin that has been finally forfeited to the federal government will be the foundation of the strategic Bitcoin reserve that President Trump established in his March executive order. In addition, Treasury is committed to exploring budget-neutral pathways to acquire more Bitcoin to expand the reserve and to execute on President's promise to make the United States the Bitcoin superpower of the world. So, wow, the way I just said that, Bitcoin superpower of the world, it kind of reminds me of the UFC fights. But anyway, now why I mention this, guys, is because Trump has also mentioned that not only is Bitcoin going to be a part of the treasury, but he also wants to add Ethereum. He wants to add XRP, Solana, Cardano. So just keep in mind that that might happen sooner rather than later. What Bessent's saying here actually specifically is that Bitcoin that has been finally forfeited, meaning any like fraudulent Bitcoin that's been stolen has been forfeited and now is accumulating within the treasury. So now we have a verbal basically from him that this is started and that there is a treasury out there and that the government is now holding Bitcoin, which is incredible, guys. So one more thing to note is that the accumulation of ETH is just being, compounding and going up dramatically, guys. Ever since, the last month, we can see this significant increase primarily due to all these digital asset treasury companies that we've been following and how much more ETH has been accumulated. Now, let's look into the price action of throughout the last week. As we can see, Ethereum still is up 5.8%. So now I'm up about 38% on my original investment. And that is pretty good to know, guys, because there's the one saying you see all the time. It's like zoom out because, if you were looking, just on Friday, the sentiment of ETH has kind of shot down the drain. But it's like, guys, zoom out. Literally 1 week, we're still up 6%. It's okay, guys. Same story goes for SBET. Friday, we're down 15%. As you see, I'm down 2.6 thousand on my total return, and I was down 3.4 thousand just Friday. But guys, it's okay. I talked about, if you are not okay with volatility, do not buy these plays because it's just not a good idea for you. I'm a super patient investor. I plan on having this for years to come. We literally have a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity with asset tokenization. So I'm not going anywhere. Stable coins, we're going to have real estate tokenized in the future. We're going to have art tokenized in the future. We're going to have carbon credits. We're going to have commodities. We're going to have bonds, T-bills, money market funds. So many things are going to be tokenized, guys. And it's not just me saying this. I'm going to get later into an article where Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, agrees. And in his chairman's message this year, he talked about this. I believe it's called the chairman's message, but he talked specifically about this, and I'm going to show you exactly what he said. And so here, let's go ahead and get to the price at BMNR, guys, throughout the day. On Friday, we were down 4.67%. And so we are now trading under 60. But remember, guys, we do trade I guess, parallel to ETH, and ETH was down 5%. So it's not, the fact that both of these were down makes a little bit of sense, because if you recall my last video, we talked about where the equation is the price of the digital asset treasury equals the initial investment times the change in the multiple on the net asset value, which is that premium we talked about, times the change obviously in the price of ETH plus the yield that you're getting from the staking rewards. So that 3% we've talked about. So remember, guys, that if ETH goes down, we're probably going to go down. If ETH goes up, that's why I keep saying we're all in it together, and ETH is ultimately the main champion here. And I'm going to get more into that later. So let's go ahead and look at the chart here for the digital asset treasury MNAV update from my boy Risk on Bobby. I'm actually tweeting this through a different post here, but Risk on Bobby is the guy who comes out with these daily MNAV updates. And right now, BMNR is trading at a 2.1 MNAV, which is incredibly high. If you guys remember, MicroStrategy trades at a 1.7 MNAV, so trading significantly higher than that. And that's kind of the benchmark out there. And then SharpLink, ticker symbol SBET, is trading at a 1.0. And we do have a couple of strategies out there that are clearly, holding a lot less, but are trading at such a significantly lower MNAV as well. And so what I think might happen, and this is kind of what Tom Lee talked about, is that with this this money they have available, this dry powder yet to be deployed, which is roughly $20 billion, they might actually, instead of shocking the supply, they can actually take some of that money and maybe buy one of these other digital asset treasury companies and just acquire the amount of ETH that they have on their balance sheet. So as we see here, these guys, GAME has over 15 million ETH as well. So that's nice to know as well. So we can go ahead and hop into my thoughts on the earnings call. So my overall thoughts, and I'm sure it's probably similar to everyone else's overall thoughts, is that it was a little bit underwhelming. And what I mean by that was that there was really no new news. Like, a lot of people were going into this, and I think part of the reason why the price action dropped 15.5% is that a lot of people were going into this with these really, really high expectations. Even in my last video, I did say I do have some expectations, and I think that part of that is transparency I talked about, where I wanted them to just be a little bit more transparent, maybe name some of their investors from their disclosed direct offerings of $200 million on August 6th and $400 million on August 10th. They didn't share any of that on the call. They did, however, because SEC requires, if there's anybody with over a 5% investment, you need to, let your shareholders know that. So I do have actually some documents I'm going to get into from sec.gov here. And so one thing to note, this is from their filing. You can see they talked about the offerings of August 6th and August 10th. And then they didn't actually disclose those investors. But guys, this is what I want you to remember, is that on August 6th, they had a $200 million offering for private investors, and they had a price per share at $19.50. And then on a 400 million offering on 4 days later on August 10th with a price per share of 21.76. That means, guys, that there's $600 million of investments out there that are either roughly in line with or higher than the current price of SharpLink. We are at 1989 right now, guys. That means there are private investors that have dumped 600 million in at the same time that, you know, we are still being able to buy right now. And so that's pretty bullish on my perspective. I think that if a lot of these private investors, and I'll get into one really big one right here, is Kenneth Griffin. So Kenneth Griffin is the CEO of Citadel and Citadel Securities, which is one of the largest investment companies in the entire world. And so he actually bought himself. He has 4.9% of the company himself. And then you can also see they disclosed that a lot of these reporting companies here, Citadel GP, we have Citadel Advisor Holding LP, Citadel Advisors, they also have percentages as well of it. And so when we come down to the bottom, we can see the amount of beneficially owned shares. So we have Citadel Securities has this many, Citadel Securities Group, Citadel Securities GP LLC has this many. But then down here at the bottom, Mr. Griffin may be deemed to beneficially own 8.38 million shares of SBET. So good to know that he's actually putting his own money on the table here. So let's go back to my tweet here. Now, here's something that I wanted to talk about too. So in my opinion, I kind of wrote this in a way I wish I wrote it better, and I'll explain now. So in my opinion, I said we should start sharing MNAV like Tom Lee did in his chairman's message, or like, you know, MicroStrategy does, where that's kind of the main benchmark metric that people use to compare the price of the stock versus the price of ETH and how much they're holding. So that MNAV is pretty important. But Joe Lubin and SBET have decided to use this different metric called ETH Concentration, which is the Ethereum they hold divided by 1,000 fully diluted shares. Now, I'm totally okay with that. And I think the way I wish I reworded this was I want there to be a standardization for all the ETH treasury companies to have the same metric. So if everyone's using ETH Concentration, amazing. If everyone is using MNAV, amazing. And so I actually want to show you this because I tweeted this tweet out on August 15th, you know, the day of earnings. And the following day, there was a tweet here by this gentleman that said, comparing ETH treasuries is a mess. Let's fix it with a simple transparency framework. 1, ETH concentration. 2, cash on hand. And 3, total debt. Standardize this and investors win. Happy to update ETH Treasury Reserve to incorporate those data points. So I think this guy is the guy who owns he owns the company Strategic ETH Reserve.xyz, which is a company that a lot of people have been using to compare the different treasuries. I'll make sure I have that in the description below. But what's cool about this tweet and why I'm actually showing it to you guys is that Sam from the CEO of BTBT, Bit Digital, which is another ETH digital asset treasury, said, I agree, there should be standardization. So that's really cool to see, guys, because I kind of called it out. I'm not going to lie. I said, in a way, I think we should be sharing the same thing as other people, which in my mind, I was trying to say I would love some more standardization. So those were a bit of the negatives, guys. Obviously, a bit underwhelming. I want some standardization and that I want some more transparency because, you know, one of the things they're touting is that they want to be the most transparent ETH digital asset treasury out there. And I think this is one way to do that. It's like they tell us who's kind of investing in your business. That'd be kind of cool. It also might create some hype around the stock. And so one thing too to note is that the positives, guys, it's not all negatives. One of the big positives is what I talked about in my last video, where I said Joe Chalem, the guy they brought over from BlackRock, the co-CEO, has a history of creating ETFs like IBIT, also ETH. So some of the biggest, not only the biggest Bitcoin treasury in the world, or ETF in the world, sorry, but also the biggest Ethereum treasury in the entire world, or Ethereum ETF in the entire world. Sorry, guys. But they confirmed on the call, basically, he said it verbatim, that they're working on preferred securities. So I talked about from my last video, Michael Saylor, and from MicroStrategy, how they have all these different preferred securities that basically open up their stock to an entire different type of investor, where there's value investors, there's growth investors, there's income investors, and that a lot of people are very interested in dividends, and that this is a way to expose your stock to more people. And so it's a great way. I think that SBET, I think, will be, in my opinion, and I'm still pretty confident on this, I think SBET will be have the first mover advantage, which is going to be huge to get this off the ground and get SBET, having their own preferred securities. So I think that's pretty exciting. They also reiterated multiple times that we're still very early. I want people to remember that too. I plan on holding this stuff for a very, very, very long time. I do plan on doing, weekly videos on this subject. And so reiterating, like, this is early, guys. We got to be careful with us, panic selling at this point at a 1.0 MNAV. There's going to be a lot of innovation within ETH, within the scalability of the layer 1, with creating new layer 2s that have, ZK EVMs, zero knowledge, EVM rollups that are going to help speed up the layer 1, because a lot of the bear thesis around and the bear case around Ethereum is that it's slower than Solana, it's slower than XRP. But the bull thesis, like Kathy Wood mentioned, is that it's more decentralized and it's more secure. So, what if the most secure decentralized network can also be at the same time one of the most, one of the speediest and one of the most fast networks as well? That would be incredible. And so that's why I want to get to this next point with this strategic partnership with Consensus that I think a lot of people aren't really wrapping their head around at this point. And this is something that Joe Lubin, talked about in the call, is that, guys, when we started SBET, we brought over people from Consensus. So a lot of the leadership and, in the back end that are making these daily trades and doing all the ATM offerings, they're doing the back end framework for these preferred securities and things like that. These guys have had their heads down the entire time, maybe for years of their life, on Ethereum. These guys are experts in the field. They literally worked at Consensus, who has some of the largest products in the crypto space, like MetaMask. And then they're also creating their own layer 2 technology that's supposed to be directly involved with Ethereum's protocol in every way, shape, and form to help with burning, native staking and things like that as well. So I'm really excited on Linea, and I actually wanted to read something because there's this video that Vitalik, Buterin, guys. I don't want to play this video just because I haven't got permission from Bankless to do so, and I'm on the verge of monetization on this YouTube channel, so I don't want to get flagged or anything. But I did want to talk about this, and I highly recommend you guys watching. I watched this entire 2-hour video, and right here, actually, you know what? I do have a little bit of a 10-second clip I want to show you guys real quick. Let me turn this up.
And I think we actually have technologies to do that did not exist years ago, right? So the big one, of course, is ZK EVMs, and ZK EVMs are almost production ready this year in a way that was totally not true, I think, even 1 year ago.
So guys, the reason why I wanted to bring that up was because he said ZK EVMs are in a place now where they're basically ready, where they weren't, 1 year ago. So what does that mean to you? I mean, it means to me that maybe, just maybe, Joe Lubin, Consensus, and Linea, specifically Linea, who is leading the way in ZK EVM rollups, is actually doing a great job making the layer 1 more scalable. That's the whole point. And that's Joe Lubin in his call this entire time has been talking about how excited they are to have this strategic partnership with Consensus, because ultimately it's going to bring back value to SBET. And so in the long run, this is what I'm kind of betting on, guys. This is what I think the hiring of Joe Chalem and his expertise regarding these different securities, his expertise and knowledge around the private capital markets in general, but also this strategic partnership with Consensus is something that we can't underestimate, guys. And that's the main things. When you listen to that earnings call, these are the main things that they're talking about that differentiate them from the other digital asset treasuries. So wanted to make that note. Another note that I think is silly is that the gap accounting rules are very stupid right now for liquid staked ETH, and hopefully they get fixed over time. They kind of mentioned the CFO of SharpLink was talking about how they're working with the governing bodies to try to fix this, basically. But right now, I guess the way it works is if you liquid stake your ETH, apparently if the price goes down based like lower than when you originally staked it, then it actually will show up on the your income statement as, I guess, the lowest price that ETH was throughout the entire quarter, which just seems like really silly to me. I don't know if I'm fully getting that correctly, but that's basically what I got out of it, and that they're working to hopefully get this fixed over time. And that's just something that the SEC is going to have to figure out over time. But my final thoughts are that, let's just wrapping my head around this one more time before I get into other news, is that one, SBET is still trading at nearly half the MNAV as BMNR. So we're holding, the same asset. We're holding ETH with a stronger differentiators, in my opinion. I think the consensus partnership and Joe Chalem and his expertise, I think it's a stronger differentiator. Personally, I think Tom Lee has a stronger differentiator, and then that is marketing, and that is his connections for private investors like Kathy Wood and Peter Thiel and other people that have invested in BMNR specifically. Which I think, by the way, remember guys, down here, disclosure, I own all three. So I'm very excited for all three of the ETH treasuries here, well, SBET, BMNR, and obviously the underlying asset. So I don't want to cause a war in the comments or anything, but I do think Tom Lee has better marketing skills. I think SBET has stronger differentiators personally. And I could be wrong, guys. I could be wrong. Remember, if ETH wins, we all win. It's still early, and that the market sell-off to me made no sense, and it seems to me like it was a shakeout from traders that were expecting a big pop. So once again, guys, not financial advice. If you plan on investing in any of these, do your own research. I will be, full disclosure, I own all three, and I'm going to be holding for a long time. So appreciate that. One other thing I wanted to show you was this is that ETH concentration calculation that SBET's been doing, which is the amount of ETH that they have divided by the amount of fully diluted shares. And we can see a steady increase throughout June, throughout July, and throughout August. This number is something we want to see higher and to continue to grow higher. So I think over time, and as I continue to have videos on these companies, I think if we can have some sort of standardization, I would love to be able to show the ETH concentration for BMNR and all the other digital asset treasuries as well. I think that would be really, really cool. And so the only other thing I wanted to get into as well was this video. I'm going to link it below, but this video with Vitalik Buterin, the co-founder, by the way, of, I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, of Ethereum. This guy created the white pages on Ethereum when he was a teenager. A teenager, guys. This guy is brilliantly smart. He obviously gets a little bit of slack just because some people that are just that smart don't have the maybe social capacity like others do, but I think he clearly does. He has a 2-hour video here where he explained in detail about ETH. They talked about the scaling of the layer 1. They talked about ETH treasuries here at the end of the video. They also talked about the cultural evolution of Ethereum. His thoughts on Bitcoin versus ETH. I mean, this is such a great video. Definitely going to link it below. But one thing at the end of this video that I thought was really cool was they asked, what about the next 10 years of Ethereum? Like, what do you want to see? And he said, finance happening on Ethereum by default would be amazing. I thought that was obviously, that's obviously what he wants to see. But to break that down even further, he wants the future of computing, a trustless vision of security that is based on cryptography and verification of code being a societal default. Us getting to an era where we are using things where we have a strong assurance that they are secure. And the era of trust for security looks as archaic as not cleaning our water looks today. So very interesting because there's another video and, talking about the trust versus, being secure and just trusting things. In this video here, I love this video too. It's by Centrifuge. It's a documentary about tokenization. And in this video, toward the beginning, the CEO of, trying to find this quote that I have. Oh, yeah, the CEO, Mike Cagney from Figure, said, displacing trust with truth. So Ethereum has the ability to displace trust with truth. So instead of, hey, just trust me, your money's safe. It's in a bank, you know, it's safe. Or, hey, trust me, bro. Like when you route and wire your money across the world, like it's gonna get there. And you know that the diamond ring you're getting for your wife, it's not. I'm not a scammer. Trust me, bro. Trust me. So with ETH, you know, that takes trust and it's now truth. You have a ledger, you have someone's token, you can, or you have someone's unique identifier, which is something I'll get into in a second, where you can identify like, hey, I'm sending this money to this person. It's verified. It's 100%. You know, even right now, like when I'm zelling someone, I get freaked out. Like hope I'm not zelling some fake robot trying to steal my shit, you know, excuse my language. Now, I wanted to hop into a couple more things here. This video I thought was really, really, really powerful just to close out kind of the SBET talk here. But this video as an 18-second clip on CNBC, where it's ultimately the final thoughts from Joe Lubin from their earnings call. And just actually, I think this was a little bit before, but listen to Joe Lubin's like bullish sentiment around SharpLink, not just ETH, but around SharpLink specifically.
SharpLink has an unfair advantage in many ways. It has the Ethereum company behind it. We're friendly with some of the people running the other Ether treasury companies, and we're rooting for them to have some success. We think we're going to outstrip them quite quickly and quite dramatically. SharpLink has an unfair advantage in many ways.
So he just said that they are going to outstrip them, and they think by quite dramatically. So he's saying, you know, this is a 3-day-old clip, guys. And he's saying that he knows who their competitors are. He knows who the other digital asset treasuries are. And he thinks that they're just going to whoop their butts. Hey, I mean, clearly, I hope he thinks that. But he also, guys, remember, he's the co-founder of ETH, and he has just such a great co-CEO that he hired. Like, I can't say it enough, guys. I'm really excited about this company. And so I wanted to get in this last article before we leave, because we gotta talk about the tokenization of assets, of real world assets, RWAs. I think that this ultimately is obviously the bull thesis. Right now, we only have really one that's being utilized and has like a clear market fit, and that is stablecoins. But there are so many other assets out there that are going to be able to get tokenized, guys. So I have actually a list that I created of things that I think are going to eventually be tokenized. And then I'm going to get into Larry Fink. This is his corporate investor relations chairman's letter for this year. And so, one, real estate. So real estate assets are going to be tokenized, and there's no doubt in my mind. So what I mean by that is not only can you as an individual that doesn't have a ton of capital, you can have a little bit of capital and invest into real estate across the world, whether that be like the Empire State Building, whether that be any other literal like homes in a neighborhood. One thing that I think is really, really cool is like, think about this. Say you own a home and you don't want to have to pull out a HELOC because that's a huge pain in the butt. Getting a loan against your equity in the house. Imagine if you can just tokenize your equity, kind of like a company were to IPO, and then they were to sell tokenized shares of their house to raise capital and then get money right now as like basically a loan of the capital you own. And then at any time can just buy back the shares that they sold on their house. That is a future that is possible. Okay. Another thing is, imagine like, have you ever had like a group of friends together and you're like, oh man, wouldn't it be nice if we just all, you know, bought a compound together and we all just lived on some land somewhere and like we all just chipped in to rent and did this. Now with tokenization, this is literally possible. And you don't have to go through an agent. You won't have to use a broker. You don't have to go and get a law firm to sign off on everything. Through smart contracts, there's a possibility in the future where you could say, okay, there's a property and let's split it 10 different ways by 10 different people because we're all friends here. And let's buy it from the owner and we all chip in, and there's a contract that's legally bound where we all own 10% of the land, and at any time we can transact that 10%. You know, someone wants to buy out someone's property or sell it to someone else. That's all possible. That is the future of tokenization. It's going to add so much more liquidity, so much more red tape that's going to be taken out the market. And I am super excited for this future, guys. So Right now, the only real way we can invest in real estate is two ways. We can fork up hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy an actual house, or become like run a company and become like a private real estate company. The other way is to invest in things like real estate investment trusts, REITs out there. And that's like investing in a company that holds a ton of real estate. And so that's just a huge untapped market. The real estate market alone is like $52 trillion or something like that. And then people are thinking that there's only a $30 trillion opportunity in tokenization. I think there's a lot more than that. And so really excited about that. Another one, obviously, is financial securities. Just like Robinhood's going to be doing private securities, but also things like stocks, bonds, funds. We already have things like BlackRock came out with years ago. They're I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but BUIDL, which is basically a tokenized money market fund with treasury bills, things like that. I think that's super incredible. But then we also have, let me go back to this here. We also have things like commodities, obviously gold, silver, different oil, agricultural products. We're going to have intellectual property potentially being tokenized as well. So rights to copyrights, patents, licenses, royalties, ownership transfers. So like right now, think of all the music artists out there that have to go through all these legal hoops. Like I went to a literal concert. I'm trying to think of who it was, but anyway, this person literally couldn't sing her own music because she didn't have the rights to her music because of all the licensing issues with her law firm. Anyway, my point is imagine in the future where royalties, licensing, things like that can all be on chain rather than through like all kinds of legal verbatim where you're signing your life away on pieces of paper that you didn't read through. That would be nice. Art and collectibles is obvious. A lot of people talked about physical, digital art. Obviously we've seen things like NFTs, but what we haven't seen is having a fractional ownership in a piece of art that exists, like the Mona Lisa, for example. I mean that may never happen, but that's an example. And then we know carbon credits as well are pretty interesting. Supply chain assets, and then we have digital identity. Which that is just a thing that I'm actually about to talk about now, because Microsoft, actually Larry Fink, actually at the bottom of this message, I'm not trying to get off track here, but I guess we can go ahead and talk about this now. He talked about one day I expect tokenized funds will become familiar to investors as ETFs, providing we crack one critical problem: identity verification. So obviously there needs to be a way, there's a lot of like cyberpunk people out there that are super against institutions, but there needs to be a little bit of a middle ground. Vitalik in his video, actually, they talked about this a little bit, I believe. Yeah, cyberpunk versus mainstream. And so there needs to be a little bit of a mainstream component so that we can get mainstream investors to buy in. And one way we need is to crack the problem of identity verification. He talks about how right now, we already have done this before. Today, over 90% of Indians can securely verify transactions directly from their smartphones. So all using a unique identifier, which is pretty cool. But then we also have energy utilities and other assets like luxury goods, baseball cards. You have things like expensive luxury watches and purses and things like that. All of those can be tokenized, guys. So I think there's a really cool world in the future where we are using digital tokenization everywhere. Now I'm going to read out Larry Fink's opinion on this as well. The world's money moves through plumbing built when trading floors still shouted orders and fax machines felt revolutionary. Take the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications, SWIFT. It's the system that underpins trillions of dollars in global transactions every day, and it works much like a relay race. Banks hand off instructions one by one, meticulously checking details at each step. That relay approach made sense in the 1970s, an analog era when the markets were much smaller and daily transactions were much fewer. But today, relying on SWIFT feels like routing emails through the postal office. Tokenization changes all of that. If SWIFT is the postal service, tokenization is the email itself. Assets move directly and instantly, sidestepping intermediaries. What exactly is tokenization? It's turning real world assets, stocks, bonds, real estates into digital tokens tradable online. Each token certifies your ownership of a specific asset, much like a digital deed. Unlike traditional paper certificates, these tokens live securely on the blockchain, enabling instant buying, selling, and transferring without cumbersome paperwork or waiting periods. Every stock, every bond, every fund, every asset can be tokenized. If they are, it will revolutionize investing. Markets wouldn't need to close. Transactions that currently take days would clear in seconds. And billions of dollars currently immobilized by settlement delays could be reinvested immediately back into the economy, generating more growth. So, key aspects of this is it can democratize access, it can democratize shareholder voting, it can democratize yield. All of these guys, very great ways. And he did mention that one problem is identity verification, which Microsoft and other companies are actually working on, things like Microsoft Ion, which is going to help with digital IDs to help with digital identification. At the end of my video today, I really appreciate all you guys out there for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I do plan on creating about one video at least per week on SBET, BMNR, and ETH. But I also am going to be doing some more things here to come on equities. So I do plan on doing some videos on some of the stock holdings that I have too. So keep an eye out on that. Hopefully you guys will watch those as well. I really appreciate your guys' comments in the section below as well. So thank you so much.